9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. The Upper Peninsula might not be the first place you think of when talking about prospecting for gold, but indeed it's here. Gold that has been pulverized by glaciers unpredictably washes up on the shores of Lake Superior in varying degrees and locations. In 2009, the DNR passed new rules allowing individuals to prospect for gold on state-owned lands on a recreational basis.
So when we start out looking for the gold, we'll do a few sample pans to see what kind of dirt we've got. And to pan it, you're simply classifying the material by weight because the gold's so much heavier than everything else. Even though it's extremely small, it will tend to settle to the bottom of the pan. So as we classify the material, we'll then slough the lighter material off the top, and that will get us down to our concentrated material. We always pan into a little tub so we're not using the lake, and so that if we accidentally tip the pan, we don't lose any gold we may have collected in there. And a lot of people, when they start panning, will tend to be very, very careful to not run any gold out. But from what I've found, there's no way to keep it all in the pan. We try and keep as much as we can in there. There's a lot of videos you can watch online to learn how to pan. If you watch any of the prospecting shows, they'll tend to show you some pretty good techniques as well. You'll see when we classify this, the lighter white and yellow sand will come to the top, and that's a good indication that you're classifying it properly. Every time you do it, you'll see that lighter material come up to the surface. All of the gold that we get here along Lake Superior is glaciated gold that's come down from Canada. It's been pulverized by the glaciers for the last few millennia, so it's gotten crushed up and is quite small, but it's actually pretty plentiful. When we're looking for it here along the beach, we'll look into the black sands that you see which are actually a mixture of hematite, magnetite, and iron sand. And all of those heavier materials hold the gold. The gold's actually pretty transient here on the beach. The wave action can affect it day to day as to whether a spot's good one day and not so good the next. There's actually gold along most of the shore of Lake Superior. Some of the better concentrations, though, tend to run from the Two-Hearted River on the east to Grand Marais on the west. We've got one little speck in this pan, but that's an indication we're in the right spot. If we're pulling out pieces like this, and this is a small piece of gold, it's the size of about the size of a flour grain, but that's what we tend to get on the beach from the gold that's been pulverized by the glaciers. We found a little bit of gold with our test pan, so now we're going to bring our sluice down and see if we can get a little bit more.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works.
Rapid River Knife Works is the largest custom knife factory showroom in Michigan. Hunting knives, pocket knives, and kitchen knives. Watch your custom knife being made and engraved. Free laser engraving with your personal message or company logo. Lifetime warranty on every knife and free sharpening. Bring the family and visit Rapid River Knife Works today.
The setup we have is a recirculatory system to try to do our best to follow the regulations that the state of Michigan set. We can't have a system that draws or pumps water directly into or out of Lake Superior. So we have a system set up here with a small commercial style sluice that runs a bilge pump out of a boat connected to a 12-volt battery. We collect all the tailings in the bucket so they don't gum the pump up, and then the water just recirculates through it. Prospecting along the shore of Lake Superior You'll want to look for the concentrates of black sand, mostly located between the Two-Hearted River and Grand Marais. There's plenty of places to access the beach and take a look for it. If you're going to be out prospecting, make sure you check with the DNR to make sure you're following all the regulations that they set forth. This end, if you see some of the reddish hue in it, it's the iron. And actually almost all of this black sand is a magnetite. And you can tell that as you're prospecting it, you can actually hold a magnet to it and the sand will stick right to the magnet. We're trying to just get this thin top layer for two reasons. One, so we don't disturb too much of the beach. And two, the black sand tends to be in layers only about 1/4 inch deep. And then when you get down to the lighter sand that's underneath it, it won't hold the gold. One of our goals when we're prospecting like this is to make sure that we're as gentle on the beach as we can. We want to make sure everybody can come out and enjoy this. The rule I have is try to never do any more environmentally than a kid would building a sandcastle. And when we're done running these tailings, we'll actually replace the dirt from right where we got it. Once we've got the dirt collected, we'll run it through the sluice, which is lined with a ribbed rubber mat. And that mat will allow the heavier material, specifically the gold, to settle out into the bottom of those ribs. And it'll allow the lighter material, the sand, rock, and other quartz-based stuff that we don't want, to run down into the bucket, where we can then replace it right back onto the beach. And you kind of have to learn through trial and error based on the sluice that you have, amount of water flow that you have, how steep you need to set it, and how fast you can run the dirt through it. And it's all a experimentation process. There's no real good rule for it. You can run a small recirculating sluice. One of the most popular methods though, and the cheapest and easiest, is just to go out and pan. If you come out prospecting on Lake Superior, there isn't one hot spot to stay with. If you look along the beach with the wave action and the erosion, the beach can change from day to day, and so can the spots with the gold concentration. Whereas great one day may not be so great the next, and where you weren't finding any before, you might find a whole bunch the next time out. Last summer when my son and I were walking the beach looking for agates, we happened to cross a pretty good patch of the black sand. And when I looked at it and realized it was the heavier material, I told him I figured there might be some gold in it. And we both sort of laughed about it. Well, we got about 200 yards further down the beach, and there were 3 people with shovels and a couple sluices. And at that point it seemed more intriguing than humorous, so we met up with them later and saw what they had collected and realized it was a viable hobby and just a fun way to spend a day on the lake. At this point we're cleaning the mats out of the sluice after our first run of dirt, and hopefully this will be a little more concentrated material. Today wasn't our best collection day. We only found a few flecks. Sometimes when you're getting a little bit better dirt, this is the result you can get from about 10 gallons of beach dirt. Run that down to just a little bit of concentrates and there'll be a few hundred flecks of gold in there. They're all quite small, just flour grain size, but They add up and look nice in a little vial if you can show off to your friends. One of the rules the state sets is that you're only allowed a 1/4 ounce of gold per person per year. And I think even if you were out here every day, all day, during the summer, you'd never get there. So it's not something you'll ever get rich doing, but when you're on a lakeshore like this, on a day like this, it really doesn't matter.
906 Outdoors is brought to you by Race Driven.
Get in touch with your adventurous side and find your drive with Race Driven. As an online retailer, dealership, and manufacturer, we can provide power sport enthusiasts with virtually any part or accessories for ATV, UTV, and motorcycles. Customer driven, quality driven, race driven.
Hop aboard a ferry from St. Ignace or Mackinac City and make the short trip to the eastern end of the Straits of Mackinac, to the 3.8 square mile bump of land that pops out of Lake Huron between the upper and lower peninsula, known as Mackinac Island. It's a short journey by water, but long in time. The minute you arrive at the dock, you find yourself in a place that seems to be suspended in time. There are no cars, just horses, buggies, and bicycles. All sorts of shops, bars, hotels, and fudge. Lots and lots and lots of fudge. You can try, but there's no escaping it. You can smell it in the air. It's impossible to ignore the craving as you pass by the various fudge shops. The delicious aroma of rich, chocolatey goodness luring you inside. Then, once inside, your sense of smell is accompanied by your sense of sight. At that point, it's all over but the eating. The tradition of making fudge began in the years following the Civil War, and on Mackinac Island is stronger than ever. Fudge remains the island's most popular souvenir. Over 10,000 pounds of fudge leave the island every day, coming from shops that opened their doors well over a century ago. Shops that have been family owned and operated for generations. Mackinac Island's first fudge shop is still here, serving up top quality fudge. There are at least a dozen shops downtown, creating the most mouth-watering confectionaries you can buy, and using recipes and methods that remain unchanged since their conception. What is it that makes Mackinac Island fudge so good, so irresistible? What makes it the most popular fudge in the country? That's what we were here to find out. And what better time than during the annual Mackinac Island Fudge Festival? So we set off on a fudge sampling mission. We opted for kicking off our tasting adventure at the Pink Pony, where they had a special Mackinac Island Fudge beer on tap. An A+ goes out to Michigan's own Arbor Brewing Company on the Mackinac Island Fudge beer. Once our whistles were wet enough, we hit the street in search of fudge of a more traditional nature.
We are the original fudge company on Mackinac Island, and this is the very place that it started, again in 1887. So Henry and Sarah Murdoch from Germany immigrated to the United States, and in 1887 is the same time that the Grand Hotel was being built, and they actually built the Grand. It was much smaller than it is now. They built it in like 90 days. So Mr. and Mrs. Murdoch came up. Mr. Murdoch was a professional sail maker, so he came up to work at the Grand Hotel and make all the awnings for the building. Well, his wife Sarah was a confectionery and candy person, and she brought her recipes to this country and then to Mackinac. And they lived in the back of this store. This store is a good 150 years old. So this was a little kitchenette, a little dining area, and they just did lunches and that kind of thing. And she made fudge in the back room, and sold that as desserts or whatever little treats. And then it became popular, and they moved the kitchenette out and turned this into a fudge store. So this is just pure chocolate. Fudge. We use a lot of sugar. All the fudge companies on Mackinac Island use a ton of sugar. All the sugar comes from basically Midland and the Bay City area. So it's a Michigan product. Our butter's made in Michigan, our cream is made in Michigan. So probably like 90% of our ingredients are all Michigan made. And again, it's all natural. There's no imitations or flavorings, that kind of thing. It's all, natural product. It's obviously gluten-free. The process from start to finish takes about 45 minutes from the time that you fire the copper kettle to the time that it's like finished on the marble slab. We use marble because it's very porous, so it absorbs, pour after pour, it absorbs that heat. The fudge is cooked to right around 240 degrees. It's adjusted every day depending on what the temperature of water boils at. So some days it boils at 211, 211 and a half, other days 212 and a half, 213. So that's really important, is to get the temperature right. Each flavor is cooked to a different temperature, all within about 2 degrees. But on that very day, these guys, Carnell, will kind of recalibrate after making a batch, and he'll adjust the temperature and adjust the timing. So when we start in the morning, the tables are at the coolest, so the fudge doesn't sit very long. As we get into the afternoon and say we've made 400 or 500 pounds of fudge, the tables start to get pretty warm. So this is, it's not hot, but it's quite warm. When they're done making fudge, we make peanut brittle, cashew brittle, pecan brittle. And so when we're done at the very end of the day, if you felt the tables after making brittle, it's almost, you can almost fry an egg on it. They're that hot.
906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours. Cooking Wild Seasonings summer sausage. Regular, jalapeno, and garlic. Get yours today at cookingwildseasonings.com.
We do holiday fudge, which is pretty cool. We started that last year. We've had a lot of customers and companies that wanted, the original Murdoch's fudge of Mackinac Island. So we're doing fudge and brittle and toffee and other treats during the holiday season. So we actually close at the end of October, and then we come up the first part of December and make fudge basically for 2 weeks to send all over the country. So they're going to pour this. That's about 30 pounds, 32 pounds. So that's extremely hot. It's going to sit for about 3 minutes, and then he's going to start to work it. So it really cools fairly quickly because of the marble. The marble, as I said, is very porous. It absorbs the heat, from the fudge. So he's going to rev this up. These are fresh walnuts from Georgia, Georgia walnuts. It's one of our more popular flavors. We make it the old-fashioned way with, all natural ingredients, and I really think everyone does a good job on Mackinac Island, and I think at a certain point, it kind of becomes a personal preference. So we like a denser, we don't like the fudge to be mushy. So, fudge lasts, it doesn't melt. A lot of people think it melts, but it would have to be in the direct heat for it to melt. It lasts you just have to keep it tightly wrapped. It freezes really well. It freezes well for up to like 6 months. So he's working it now, and again, he's going by feel here. So there's a certain consistency, and he can just tell by looking at it, and also by the feel with a paddle of when it's time to move on to the next step. So it's actually kind of fun. Making fudge is it's actually fun if it sets up well. If you're on a good day where the climate's right. So you can see it's kind of getting a little bit thicker. You can see it's pretty. You can see kind of a sheen to it. So again, it's all kind of feel. And each day is a little bit different. If it's really humid, you wait longer. You probably spade it a little bit. So he's going to wait a certain amount of time here, a couple of minutes, and it just kind of firms up, cools down, and he knows it by basically, again, by looking at it and by feel. And then he'll work one side of it, and then we'll let Isabella try to match what he's doing, I'm just going to flip it once, and I'm going to turn it over to Carnell, and then we'll let you give it a go. So. See how you never want to really move the fudge until it's ready to be moved, You want it to be a certain consistency. So it's just. making, I mean, he's really close to having that finished. He'll move it one more time on this side and then basically do what we call a finishing move, a finishing stroke. And Mike's slicing here. Again, this is about 30 pounds, which is 60 slices. It cools for a little bit and it'll be sold tomorrow. So it's always less than 24 hours old, the fudge.
Mackinac Island is truly a unique place. Time hasn't forgotten about Mackinac. It hasn't passed it by. It just hasn't changed it much. Motorized vehicles have been prohibited on the island since 1898, and M185 is the only highway in the United States without cars. The island was home to a Native American settlement before European exploration began in the 17th century. It played a key role in the development of the Great Lakes fur trade. During the American Revolutionary War, Fort Mackinac was built by the British. It was the site of 2 battles during the War of 1812. In the late 19th century, Mackinac Island became a popular tourist attraction. Much of the island has undergone extensive historical preservation and restoration. As a result, the entire island is listed as a National Historic Landmark, and more than 80% of the island is preserved as Mackinac Island State Park. The island has a year-round population of about 500, which of course grows considerably during the summer months with as many as 15,000 visitors a day. We finished up our fudge tasting adventure back at the Pink Pony. We tasted long enough that we missed the 5 o'clock boat back to the mainland and had to hang around till 7. Good music, good beer, and Mackinac Island fudge all from the same stool. Makes it pretty tough to leave. So what makes Mackinac Island fudge so special? I think maybe it's the great care that's taken in making it. Perfection that can only come from years and years of experience. Maybe it's the island itself. It certainly adds something. I'm not sure, I guess, and I'm not sure it matters. It's just plain good old-fashioned Michigan perfection. It was a spectacular day, but it was time to leave. Any longer, and we'd be sleeping on the dock. With the island fading away behind us, and Lake Huron below us, the Mackinac Bridge to our side, and the UP in front of us, I couldn't help but think about how amazing this place is where we live. So many unique and special places, all in our own backyard, all within far less than a day's travel. I haven't been to the island since I was too young to remember. I know for a fact I'll be back soon, and many more times.